Joel, how did your brain surgery deficits resolve over time? So basically, what happened to my body after brain surgery, and how quickly did it take for them to recover, and have they recovered? And what did I do to help them recover? This is a great question from a viewer. Her name is Ashwarya. She's actually posted a few questions, and I've done a few recent videos for her. Her brother has just had brain surgery himself, I believe, 7 or 8 weeks ago. And Ashwarya is a legend of a sister, and she's just scouring the internet looking for insights and research and information. So, great question. I'm actually going to split the video into 3 parts. Firstly, I'm going to talk about my ataxia and my balance coordination issues and my clumsiness. In the second part, I'm going to talk about diplopia, which is severe double vision. And in number 3, I'm going to talk about my dysphagia, which is my challenges with my swallow. So guys, you may see me looking up and down. I'm going to refer to my notes a lot today because there's a lot to go over. But firstly, I want to touch on ataxia. So basically, ataxia is a disorder and it affects your coordination and your balance and your fine motor skills. It was a known side effect. My surgeon told me this was going to happen purely because where we cut to remove my brain tumor in the cerebellum, this is responsible for those fine motor skills, balance, coordination area. And as soon as we cut in, immediately my symptoms came on thick and fast. So basically, it has severely changed my life. It's affected my walking, my balance, my coordination, my fine motor skills. I'll get more into specifics a little bit later. But yeah, primarily it's all on my left hand side. It's kind of like I've had a stroke, and it's like my left hand side is shut down. Or as I say to people I've just met, and they ask me what's going on with you, I explain to them it's like the entire left hand side of my body is drunk, and my right hand side is completely normal, completely sober. I'm talking my fingers, my hands, my arms, my legs, my feet, my toes, even the left hand side of my face and the left hand side of my tongue has been affected. So the left hand side of my face is numb. I've got permanent tinnitus, so there's a permanent ringing in my ear, and yeah, the sensations in my face and even the taste buds of my tongue were affected by the ataxia. For any neurologists out there, correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, once I got ataxia, it's basically like a line got drawn down the middle of my body, and the left hand side is drunk, and the right hand side is completely normal. So things that I now find challenging that I have ataxia and my left hand side is challenged. Staircases is massive for those of you watching in Australia. You know we do everything on the left, so that means we walk up and down staircases on the left. And because my left hand is challenged and my walking is also challenged, it's hard for me to hold onto a handrail with my left hand and keep full balance. So it was really great when I did go to Europe a year and a bit ago. I went to France, and because I do everything on the right, I could grab the rails of all the stairs up and down on the right hand side, and I wouldn't ruin the etiquette of stay to your right, and I felt much more secure and stable on European staircases. So that was another perk of going to Europe. I also struggle with things where I use both hands for fine motor skills. So fine motor skills is where you use your fingers to grasp things. So things like buttoning a t-shirt, buttoning a shirt, tying shoelaces, putting on a tie, little things like that where I have to rely on both hands and fingers to basically connect and combine and collaborate to get a task done. I really struggle. So as you can imagine, trying to button a shirt in the morning to go to work and put on a tie and tie my shoelaces is a bit of a challenge. But not a pity party. It kind of is what it is. Other things that are challenging is typing. So I've got a keyboard right in front of me. I remember when I first started recovering from my brain surgery, I would literally sit at work and just type with my right hand because I found that easier. But then one of my friends, a wise person, she told me use both your hands, otherwise your left hand will never improve. So I try and incorporate my left hand in all my typing now, even though it is a little bit slower. And I do hit incorrect keys. It's just a really good way to incorporate my left hand into my recovery. And another little side tip for anyone who's got left hand ataxia, put all your passwords for your work on the left hand side of your keyboard. So you have to use your left hand more. So letters like Q, W, E, A, S, D, Z, X, C. Make your passwords out of those letters, and even the letters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That'll force you to constantly use your left hand, which was a cool little tip that someone shared with me from a forum I was in. Another thing that's majorly been affected is my ability to prepare dinner. So as you can imagine, right? So when I hold, let's say I want to slice a carrot, I'm trying to hold a carrot with my left hand will shake. I'm coming in with my right hand with a really sharp knife and my hand is shaking. As you can imagine, the increased risk of cutting myself skyrockets. So preparing dinner, buttering toast, all those little things where my left hand is very shaky and my right hand's quite normal. I use this pen for instance. Imagine I'm trying to butter bread and this hand's shaking everywhere. I've had many days where I've had, Vegemite, butter, peanut butter, jam all over my hand. But again, this is just something that has massively improved. And if you don't use it, you'll lose it. So I force myself to cook, and I find cooking is a really good way to rehabilitate it and get my left hand less shaky and a little bit more accurate, which is great. Another thing as well that I challenge with, so I'll show you, I've got my drink bottle here, right hand, super stable, super normal. Left hand, I've got a bit of a tremor, and you can imagine if the lid wasn't on, all that water would go straight out. So I like to use the analogy when I tell people about my ataxia. Imagine we went to a bar and I walked up to a bar to grab 2 beers. I would have to bring them back one at a time. Otherwise, whoever's beer's in my left hand, they wouldn't have much beer left at the time I go back to the table. So these are other little things that I'm learning to cope with as I move through my recovery and my journey. So the ataxia itself, it makes me look like I walk with a bit of a limp. Because you can imagine, right, if your left leg is drunk and your right leg is fine, you will kind of look unbalanced and you look like a bit of a penguin. It's funny, I remember when I first got out of rehab and I started dating again, I put on my online dating bios, I've just had brain surgery and I look like a bit of a penguin, I walk with a limp, but I like to think of it as swagger. And yeah, that kind of made the dates I go on a bit more prepared with what to expect when I rock up, walking a little bit like a drunk giraffe. So yeah, I like to explain to people that ataxia and how it feels. Pretend you're about to put on a pair of jeans that are tight, but you put both your legs into one-legged jean. As you can imagine, there's not much room to wiggle, not much room to get your balance, not much room to get your gait or your walking stride into good equilibrium. And yeah, it's legitimately like putting 2 legs into 1 leg of a pair of jeans or really tight tights. It can become such a tripped out thing trying to walk with ataxia, because it kind of feels like someone's using a PlayStation remote control and they're steering me around. Sometimes it feels quite challenging. Guys, excuse me again, going back to my notes, but I don't want to miss anything. So this point is, it has improved over time. I've come a long way. It's nearly coming up to 5 years now post-op. There were stages where I literally couldn't stand up on my own 2 feet. I couldn't walk without a cane. I couldn't walk unassisted. I couldn't carry 2 shopping bags. I couldn't type at all. I couldn't hold a piece of bread to butter it. I couldn't hold a carrot to cut it. But over time, and just a repetition of forcing myself to not be lazy and to actually do things a bit slower and a bit more safely and force myself to use my left hand, I feel has really escalated and improved my results. Um, yeah, it is slower and it is less efficient, but it means that my left hand is slowly catching up to my right hand. Um, I don't know if I will ever recover, especially in the ataxia and the fine motor skills realm, but I'm going to give it a red good shot, and try and improve moving forward. And another reason I've improved, so for those of you who don't know, I've got a small son. He's 17 months old. His name's Hilton. He is a very, very, very energetic little boy, and he will run and jump and drop things, and I've got to be behind him, and I've got to instinctively be agile enough to catch him, or cradle his fall, or make sure he doesn't drop glass or a vase, or etc. etc. So I feel my left hand is instinctively is improved because yeah, he's a lot of hard work. You can just ask my fiance, and my right hand's great with catching him, but my left hand is catching up slowly because it's naturally forced to. And it was funny. I was sitting at a cafe a few months back with him, and he knocked a fork off the table, and I actually instinctively just reached down and caught it with my left hand. And that was a really cool mini milestone that I took note of because, months before that, if a fork dropped on the ground, my left hand coordination, even the ability to grasp and time it with catching a fork, would have been so diminished. And there's no way I would have caught that fork. So it sounds like something really little, but yeah, catching a fork with my challenged hand was a huge milestone for me, and something that I've taken a mental note of. So I guess some advice on how to recover if you do have ataxia, or how to most improve, sorry, if you do have ataxia. Um, don't not use your challenge side. Use it as often as you can. Like I even give myself a monthly challenge where every time I go in a lift or anytime I use a key to open a door, I have to use my left hand. Use your challenge side as much as possible. Yes, things are going to be slower, things are going to be less optimal, you might be in a rush, but just take your time. You're never going to create the pathways to connect your brain to your left hand side if you aren't repetitively using that side to do those normal everyday tasks that force you to use it. So yeah, another reason why I feel my ataxia and my coordination has improved is the physical therapy and the occupational therapy after my brain surgery when I was in rehab. It heavily focused on not only coordination and fine motor skills, but strength as well. So you at that stage, I was really struggling to do bicep curls or shoulder presses, but my physical therapist really heavily encouraged me to use both. Otherwise, my left hand side would never have improved. So it's kind of a wrap up on ataxia. It's the coordination and imbalance issues, I guess you could say, where the left hand side of my body feels drunk and the right hand side of my body feels completely sober. Guys, point number 2. So we're on to diplopia, or severe double vision. So this was again also brought on immediately after surgery. It was an expected side effect. So cutting into the cerebellum affects the eyesight. So immediately after brain surgery, not only did I feel like I've been smacked over the head with a baseball bat, but every single thing in every single room was spinning in a figure 8 like that, like severe double vision. I couldn't read, I couldn't see signs, I couldn't see people's faces, I couldn't see the TV. As you can imagine, and for those who don't know, I spent 5 weeks in hospital and another 5 weeks in rehab, so that's 10 weeks in total, where you'd want to be in bed reading a book, or on your phone binge watching Game of Thrones or whatever. And for the big majority of that, I couldn't even do that. I literally had to sit in bed all day and just listen to music and find other things to, I guess, pass the time that weren't visual, because yeah, it was so severe. I remember the first weekend when I was in hospital after I had my surgery, and my rugby league team, the Sydney Roosters, were playing, and I legitimately couldn't even see the screen. It was right there. I kept it on so I could just listen to it. Sadly, we lost. But yeah, I couldn't watch a single second of it. I did try, but what could you do? So you may see in some of the thumbnails of my videos, you can see me wearing an eye patch, and the eye patch was put on because of the double vision. It was meant to, I guess, take the stress and strain away from that eye that was already stressed and strained enough. But yeah, as you can imagine, to team up with my ataxia, where I was struggling to walk, having an eye patch on made walking even more challenging, which was very, very hard. So the good news, after about 2 months, my eyesight started coming back. I was getting really excited. I started spending days in bed in rehab, just binge watching like renovation shows and Would I Lie to You. If you haven't seen Would I Lie to You, watch it. It's bloody hilarious. But yeah, I could start to watch things on my phone, which meant that spending 24 hours a day in a hospital bed was going a lot faster and a lot less dragged out. So the great news is my double vision, touch wood, has completely gone away. It took about 2 months and I started to see again. But here's a caveat to that. Since my double vision's gone, I've got now what I've realized is now severe dry eye. So what that means is the moisture in my eye can't be organically naturally created by the nerve endings in my eye. So my eye every day dries out to the stage where it goes from reasonably good vision to completely blurry and blind. If I don't use eye drops and the medication I've got to keep that eye moisturized, I will go completely blind and I can't see in that eye. I can still see in total, I can still drive because that eye is perfect, touch wood. But yeah, that eye now no longer has double vision. It now has some severe dry eye. And my ophthalmologist, my eye doctor, she doesn't know if it'll ever recover. So now it's just all about managing it. And I just put an eye drop in every hour, and it definitely keeps the blindness away. And when I feel my eye drying out, I just chuck an eye drop in. So yeah, guys, I feel there's no kind of major key to curing your diplopia or your double vision. For me, it just healed over time, which was absolutely glorious because it has made other things much easier and given me more independence. Walking has become easier since I can see in both eyes, and driving. I can now drive to work, drive my family around, all these things that I wouldn't have been able to do if I still had double vision. So yay, celebrate that one. All right, part 3 of this video. We come onto something called dysphagia, which is a big word for basically not being able to swallow. Now, this was also another known side effect or deficit from brain surgery. My surgeon told me this was going to happen. He's like, look, Joel, after surgery, you're going to have really big struggles with your swallow. And at the time, I'm like, who cares? Like, what does that even mean? Because I had a fully functioning throat back then. But then as soon as it happened, I'm like, oh, whoa, this is absolutely horrible. And it's why it's part 3 of the video. It is easily the worst symptom to try and recover from. An easy way to imagine it, picture there's like a massive brick wall stuck in the back of your throat and you cannot swallow anything past it. Food, liquids, and grossly enough, your saliva. I would basically choke on my saliva every single night as I try to fall asleep because my body forgot how to naturally process saliva. It was actually quite gross. There'll be a little bit of gross stuff in this next bit. I'm not going to lie, it's all talking about swallowing and saliva and stuff. So just to get back on track, I couldn't eat or drink anything for 3 months. So that was very, 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 very challenging. Imagine going 3 days or 3 hours without your favorite food, or 3 days or 3 weeks. I went 3 months without food. It was absolutely horrible. Because I'm a big eater, I love to eat as much food as possible, but yeah, it was horrible. So what had to happen, and you may know this from other videos, so the surgeon had to put a tube up my nose, down the back of my throat, and into my stomach to feed me. And eventually, when my surgeon realized that I would need the feeding tube for a lot longer, they actually had to put what's called a PEG tube, and it drilled through my tummy into my stomach. And on the other end, I had like a little bottle where I would pour essentially protein shakes into it. And that's how I stayed nourished and kept my energy up for 3 months, because I legitimately couldn't swallow or eat anything. Um, yeah, it was horrible. And circling back to saliva, I had to use one of those dental suckers to basically suck the saliva out of my throat, because it couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't swallow. Yeah, it was horrible. And the rehab facility would not accept me until I could swallow saliva without using a saliva sucker, because they just didn't have the equipment at their facility to support someone who had needs like mine. And yeah, that's why I spent so long at hospital. I spent 5 weeks at hospital, because it took me that long for me to start swallowing my saliva on my own, and when I was well enough for the rehab facility to actually accept me. Um, so yeah, when I did get to rehab, and even starting in hospital, I had what was called a speech pathologist, and they would try and teach you with sensory exercises and different strengthening exercises on how to swallow food again, how to swallow drink again. It was horrible. I used to hate doing it, because essentially they're trying to get you to swallow food and drink when your throat doesn't work. I would constantly choke, and it felt like I was choking to death like every single day. It was horrible. Um, they would use foods that were smooth and easy to swallow, and over time, the thickness of the food and the drink actually would increase, just trying to get me to be able to, digest and swallow foods and drinks that were easy at the start. And then as I got better at it, the thickness started to go back down to thin, where I could get down to water. Um, so I guess the three foods that I used the most and were easiest for me to kind of get back into eating were bananas. Bananas are just easy to chew, and they're slippery, and they're easy just to swallow. And they've actually got a bit of bulk about them, so you can actually feel yourself trying to swallow them. The second food on top of bananas was pasta. Pastas, again, they have a bit of body about them, but they're also slippery. So it helps the whole sensation train itself. And then other foods like sorbets, ice creams, custards, for obvious reasons. There was a bit of body about them. They were thick, but they were also easy to go down, but not too quickly. Because, over time, and the three foods that are probably the hardest are mixed foods, where there's like a solid and a liquid in it. So think of a noodle soup or a pho, a Vietnamese noodle soup, where there's noodle and meat and beef and chicken, but there's also liquid. So trying to get the beef, the chicken, and noodle down, but also trying to accommodate for the liquid, which is thinner, was a really confusing combination for my brain and my throat to swallow down. So yeah, that was definitely a really hard one. Other things that are hard, so sliced meats really like stick into your esophagus, and it made it hard to either swallow it down or get it back up if you needed to, if you're choking on it. In a line with that, so smoked salmon's really hard to swallow, to get the food down the throat. And yeah, most seafoods and spinach and arugula and bok choy and leafy vegetables like that are really, really hard to swallow. But over time, like at the moment, I can eat everything, but I really have to focus on every single mouthful of food and drink I take. Even to this day, even if it is a banana or a pasta or an easy food, I have to be mindful and focus on chewing really small and really focusing on getting the food into the back of my throat, and then really slamming down on the swallow so it does get down. So yeah, I've got to be mindful. Even to this day, it does force me to eat very, very slowly. So when I go out with family and friends to a restaurant or a cafe, like I'm forever getting doggy bags to take home with me, because I'm eating so slowly. My portion of the food, when all my friends and family have finished their food, is obviously still left in front of me. So I'll take a doggy bag and go home and eat it when I'm a bit more relaxed and can eat it later, which is completely fine. I don't mind a doggy bag at all. So yeah, that kind of wraps up dysphagia. It is very, very challenging, and probably one of the most challenging things to recover from. I've made another video on this before. I might tag it at the top. But yeah, I've nearly choked to death properly 3 times. Um, my old housemate and my fiance, they've both had to fully apply the Heimlich maneuver and dislodge food from my throat because I was choking to death, and it's absolutely petrifying and scary. Um, Even scary enough that I've bought this device that's if you're home on your own, you can actually put it on your mouth and it dislodges food that is lodged in your throat for those times that I am home alone or my fiance is traveling for work and I may start choking. I've got this device under my sink, and it's a lifesaver and gives me a massive peace of mind. So, guys, that's my three massive deficits since brain surgery and how I've recovered. So, number one is ataxia and my, I guess, challenges with coordination and balance. Number two is my diplopia, which is my severe double vision and now have severe dry eye. And number three is dysphagia and the lack of ability or the big challenges with my swallow. So it's three very random and different deficits and side effects, but I just find with diligent rehab and time and positive frame of mind, I have recovered way further than I would have, and I'm still nowhere near perfect or how I was before surgery, but I'm slowly grasping my way to complete independence. So guys, I'm going to end the video as I always do. I'm just sending out loads of positive vibes to anyone going through chemo, radiotherapy, any form of treatment, or if you're awaiting an MRI result and some good news from your doctor. Sending positive vibes your way, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Peace.